Hey everybody, welcome back to Conquest of AF. And this week we're going to talk about a Spires unit, go kind of deep into how you can make force-grown drones, not just little useless dudes with spears behind giant shields on the battlefield, how they can actually kill things and help your army out and win you some games. But first, before we talk about that, we're going to go over some of the Conquest Bellum's new releases and pre-releases that they've announced just last week, in some of their new models for the city-states army that are coming out, as well as some really cool accessories that you can get for your Conquest armies no matter what army you play. So I just put a slideshow up of some of the things that are coming to Conquest here in the next month or so. As you can see, you have the city-states Promethean and Hephaestion, I think it's pronounced, the brute characters. They also have First Blood full army kits that are coming out. That was the Old Dominion one that you just saw. I think those are going to retail for like $69.99, and it's basically an entire First Blood force, which is really awesome if you're looking to get into the skirmish version of Conquest. They also have the Mechanist coming out for city-states, another just regular infantry character for city-states, and they also have an officer model for the Dwaycombe. The coolest thing though, is something that you just saw, were the magnetic bases, I think, for Conquest Last Argument of Kings, that come with actual circular bases and the square stands that we're used to, but they have magnets in the base and the stand. So it's already pre-assembled in there. I think you have to assemble it, but it's already all comes in one package like you see right there. And I know a lot of us already have magnetized our armies down, but if you haven't, that's really one of the biggest pains in the butts about playing Last Argument of Kings, is keeping all of those models, because they're so dynamically posed, like together on the stand, and if you move it the wrong way, it gets caught on terrain or something, they all fall off. So one of the first things I would do, maybe after painting the army, or even before, if you're trying to just play with the army as gray plastic or whatever, is to magnetize them to the stand, and this will be a great way you can do it. I think they're $12.99 retail for the 3 stands, and while you already have the stands and you can go out and buy magnets, I feel like this might be a little cheaper, and you don't really have to do your entire army, just maybe those units that are notorious for just getting in a jumbled pile during the game. So I know I'm pretty excited for the new releases. Over on Parabellum's website, they have when all this stuff is going to be coming out, and they have some more stuff that I've seen that's slated to come out throughout the year, which is awesome. Very excited. If you guys are looking for any Conquest merchandise, I am affiliated with Frontline Gaming. If you use the link down in the description of the video, it'll take you over to the Frontline Gaming web store, which I'm at right now, that you can see. And they have a ton of Conquest stuff in stock. You can see it's 154 items. Some of those are their mats, admittingly, but they do have a bunch of stuff. This new city-states isn't quite up yet, but that should be coming soon. But any of the other factions are on there, and they have a ton of awesome stuff. You can click on that, and you can see it's about 15% discounted for the Conquest miniatures. So any purchases you make through that link, you'll get the 15% off, as well as I'll get a small kickback, and I really appreciate the support goes right into the channel. Alright, so now let's get into the actual main topic of the video, and the force-grown drones. This is one of the very first units that came out for Conquest with the 100 Kingdoms and Spires starter set. And the models are still really, really awesome. They hold up, even though Parabellum's gone to some better plastics since then, and some of the newer models have a lot better detail. These guys are really holding up just because they're really unique, and it's a unique faction for Conquest itself. So it makes sense that these are super unique and are holding up a little better than, say, like the 100 Kingdoms Men-at-Arms, which are still good models, but they're showing their age a little bit already, I think. So you can see they look here that they're wearing like bone type armor, which is what I thought when I saw them. But that's actually like gauze that they're all wrapped up in, because these guys are force grown, as their name implies, in a very short period of time, and they have very short lifespans. I think it's even as short as like a few weeks for a specific battle, and they were made so quickly that they just don't have an immune system, which is so cool and so in keeping with the Spires lore of how just brutal their society is, and they're so alien and don't value life, like a human being would or should, I guess, that these guys are trucked in basically like supplies to the battlefield and activated or made right then as chaff units. And that is kind of what you can use them for on the battlefield in Conquest, is just chaff. You can take a small 3-stand unit for 90 points, and we'll look over their stats here in a second. They're not great, and they can just be little speed bumps. But the Spires faction is all about synergies and buffing up units through the rules, and if you do that correctly, these guys can actually be a real big pain in the butt to your opponent. So as you can see here, 90 points for 3 stands. They're a light infantry unit, so they can't hold objectives, they can just contest them. And their stat line is basically one of the worst in the game. Only 3 attacks per stand, 1 resolve, 1 defense, no evasion, 1 clash. So all ones, not even 4 attacks per stand, which is pretty standard. But they do get a couple special rules, which make that 90 points tag pretty reasonable. They have shield, so they'll be at defense 2 from the front, and support 2, so they'll be getting a bunch of attacks at least if you take a bigger unit of these guys, which you definitely will want to do if you want to incorporate them offensively in your army list. They also get purposefully mindless, which is pretty good because they're always going to use the character stand that's attached to them's resolve characteristic, even if they're broken. So if they're broken normally, you would have used that resolve of 1. But when you throw in a Biomancer or Biomancer, you're always going to get to use that resolve no matter what, which is nice. And they also get Unstoppable built in, even though they don't really have the standard for the +1 move to their second march action, but they do get to reroll their failed charge rolls. And they can take 1 officer in the Catabolic Node, which he's pretty interesting. We'll kind of talk about why you would take one of these. You won't take one all the time, but there are some situations you would want to take one. And the Catabolic Node, the first time you make a clash action, you roll 2d6, and your enemy regiment takes the full 2d6 that you rolled, and you take the highest number on the d6. So it counts as coming from the flank, so that means it's causing morale tests, so that resolve will have to be re-rolled. And it only happens that first time you do that first clash action. And a lot of you are probably thinking, what if I roll a 7 and I take 6 hits and my opponent takes 7 hits? That doesn't feel worth it. And a lot of times 20 points is not worth it for a Catabolic Node, but if you are taking a small minimum unit for 90 points, make it up to 110 for a Catabolic Node, they can be a great little suicide unit to run in. Maybe they get to use their Catabolic Node, and then the Biomancer can actually use one of his abilities to make them explode again, which we'll look at right now in one of his Biomancies of the Catalytic Rupture. So target the friendly regiment unit within 12. That regiment suffers d6 plus 1, and all enemy regiments in context suffer the same numbers of hit, and again from the flank, causing morale. So this little combination can let 110 point force-grown drone unit run in, blow up their Catabolic Node for a bunch of hits, and then also get hit by Catalytic Rupture for the Biomancer. Obviously this takes a lot of prior planning, and your card stack has to be set up just right with the force-grown drones going first and the Biomancer is kind of coming right after. But it shouldn't be too hard because the force-grown drones, you want to throw them away anyway so they can go up in the front of your stack, and the Biomancer coming next as long as you don't have any other conflicting priorities on the table. This could be a nice little combination for you to get a lot of hits and attacks out of just a 110 point unit. My next favorite thing to do with force-grown drones is just take 8 stands of them. So for 240 points, you're getting 8 stands of guys with a Biomancer with a very specific upgrade. So as a lot of Spires players know, your Biomancer is your healing support character, and he's got the Biomancies that are like a little Swiss Army knife of helpful abilities for your Spires to get buffed up to make them hit way above their weight class. And this Biomancer, while his healing is going to be very important here to this, so you're going to give him the Mastery of Flesh 1 in order to give the Force-Grown Drones Regeneration 2 draw event, and Mastery of Flesh 2 so he can do his Men Flesh twice. He can't do his Men Flesh to this same Force-Grown Drone unit twice, but it's an 8-inch range, so he should be able to pick something around to heal 2 as well. And then the last thing he's going to get is Degenerative Aura for his mutations. It's 30 points, and Degenerative Aura gives the Biomancer the ability that the regiment gains lethal demise and then enemy regiments that you're in contact with can't heal. So lethal demise just means anytime you make a failed defense roll for the regiment, so for your force-grown drones, the enemy regiment in contact with them that caused the hit suffers 1 hit for each wound that they caused. It's against their front arcs, they would get their shields and things like that. But I think, as a lot of people know, force-grown drones die in droves, and it's a very interesting way. If you get hit with 8 stands, say you lose 3 stands, that's 12 models just for being hit with something with cleave 1 or cleave 2. Now your opponent's taking 12 hits straight back and getting hurt for their troubles. And then that's not killing the 8 stands of force-grown drones. The Biomancer is going to get a chance to heal them up. The weakness for this is coming in really. The Biomancer doesn't want to get challenged or dueled by a lot of characters out there. So the way to get around this is kind of duel the Biomancer, break the unit, and make the unit have to rally instead of getting healed, because when they're broken they can't be healed, they can't hold objectives, and things like that. But as long as you keep the Biomancer kind of safe, away from dueling characters, or set up your card deck in a way where they're rallied before the Biomancer goes to heal, this can be very, very effective. And that's not even to mention that the Biomancer still gets to do a Biomancy every turn. And my favorite one to use with force-grown drones is Grant Virulence, and it gives them the Deadly Blade special rule. So any 6s that your opponent's rolling with your bunch of support 2 force-grown drone attacks, you're going to be hitting on 1s and 2s, unfortunately, but any 6s they roll are 2 damage. And I found I was playing my buddy's Nords the other day, and just this unit puts out so many attacks that they're going to roll some of those 6s and it'll really up the damage. And the other character that pairs really nicely with force-grown drones is the Biomancer. I really think there's a list, and I have enough force-grown drones to do it, so I'm going to try it out at a 2,000 point game, of just going full in on the under Spires supremacy ability, or army ability, because the Biomancer is your warlord, not a supremacy ability. So if the Biomancer is your warlord, while he's on the battlefield, all force-grown drone onslaught drones and Strix regiments get regeneration 4 as a draw event. So every time you draw a card on one of those 3 units, they get a stand back. That's awesome. And then the Biomancer can take that Mastery of Flesh 1 to give them regeneration +2, so now the unit he's in has a regeneration 6. You can also give this Mastery of Flesh to a Biomancer to have somebody have regeneration 6 in another force-grown drone unit. So that's some serious healing across your entire army if you play into onslaught drones, force-grown drones. And the Biomancers aren't terrible, they just take a little extra planning on the Spires player's part, because a lot of his abilities, like Induce Vigor, you draw your next command card. If it's 12 inches away from the Biomancer, you place that card at the bottom of the stack. And a lot of the Biomancers do that, so they get the bonus, like this one is you get Tenacious and reroll morale test of 6. But that command card that you gave that buff to is now at the bottom of your stack, acting last, which in Conquest is not something you can afford a lot of times. But he does have things like Siphon Strength, where the commands, that unit's going to act last. The command card goes to the bottom of the stack, but it's getting +1 to attacks and Dread, so your opponent can't count as inspired, which is really, really good. And he also, while not having a very good special ability like the Biomancer's Heal, he does get Pheromone Glam Burst, which you can hand out +1 March or Resolve until the end of the round. Which +1 March, you go a little faster, that's not terrible. So while some of the newer releases, like the Onslaught drones and the Bound clones, are taking the place of the force-grown drones in a lot of Spires army lists out there, there's still definitely a place for force-grown drones to be used in mass or even in smaller units in any Spires list. So if you've gone out there and bought a lot of starter sets like I did, and you have a ton of force-grown drones, and now you see the Onslaught drones and the Bound clones coming out, while they're still very good, if you want to go pick them up, not a bad idea. Don't feel bad, you can definitely still use force-grown drones and still do very, very well on the tabletop. So that's all for this week's video, and next week we'll cover probably 100 Kingdoms units. I'm not sure exactly which one, in a little more detail, kind of like this. So if you like these newer videos of unit deep dives, let me know down in the comments, and there'll definitely be more to follow. Thanks everybody for listening and watching, and good luck in your Conquest games out there.